Receiving incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
I'm sure you have many questions.
Transmission.
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 Welcome to Transmission, a monthly show about the most impactful posts from our Meteor.js forums. My name is Paul Dowman, founder at OKGrow, and each month I am joined by Sashko, Stubailo, and other guests from the Meteor development group. Please note the contents of this show are the sole opinions of their authors. This show is sponsored by Meteor Galaxy Hosting, a containerized cloud service specifically designed and engineered for Meteor app deployment. Learn more at meteor.com/galaxy. This show is also sponsored by OKGrow, an official Meteor Prime consulting partner building full-stack web and mobile apps. Learn more at okgrow.com. Welcome to Transmission number 19. I'm Paul Dowman. I'm the founder of OKGrow, where we help clients build great apps with Meteor, and I'm joined by Sashko Stubailo of the Meteor development group. Hey, Sashko.
Hey, good to see you again, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for doing this yet again. We have a lot of questions and things to talk about from the Meteor forums this week, and the first thing on the list is Kadira. So Kadira was announced to be shutting down. I'm going to say it was like 3 months ago now, maybe sometime in January, if my memory serves me right. And they gave a date that has already passed, and then the Meteor development group announced that you guys were going to acquire it. So, and now the date has been extended for the current Kadira to shut down, but the future is going to be in the hands of MDG. So do you want to tell us what the plans are for that?
Yeah, so basically, the first thing we thought when we heard that it was going to shut down is that that's going to be pretty unfortunate for people who are relying on that for their apps. And like APM is one of the most important things you can have. And for a while, we were pretty cagey talking about it because we were like, the first thing we did was call our Nota and try to figure out how we can make things work. So we were working on that for a few months. And now we finally reached some agreements, and that's when we announced it on our blog. So there's a couple of things that are going to happen. One is we're definitely pushing to have the original service run as long as possible to give people a good story to transition to what's coming next. So the current date was April 30th is the one that we were announcing, but I think we've been able to push it back 2 more weeks to I think May 15th or something like that. So that'll definitely give people a month plus to figure out their new APM story.
Oh, that's great.
So that's pretty cool. Yep. And so the other thing to clarify is that while we basically Kadira is used both as the name of the APM product, because that was the only thing that that organization started with, but also as like kind of a brand name for some of Aeronota's open source projects, other tools, stuff like that. So the only thing that we have as MDG is just that APM product. So we haven't gotten rights to the name or like any of the open source packages or other properties or anything like that.
Just to take a step back, for anyone that doesn't know the terminology and maybe isn't even familiar with Kadira, the product, APM is Application Performance Monitoring. Kadira was, I think, the only service that gave you really deep insight into performance in your Meteor app, how many subscriptions are happening, all kinds of stuff. Also included error tracking on the server and client side, and that's really important stuff. So, okay, so you're saying that. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there are definitely people who use other kinds of services to monitor their Meteor apps. Like you can do some of your own instrumentation and use like more generic services. But yeah, Kadira was the only one that would automatically instrument your Meteor app with like Meteor specific stuff. Right.
And Galaxy did give you some of that. Galaxy gives you like the basic things, how many connections are currently open, etc. So that's a good thing. So I understand that for Galaxy users, the features of the old Kadira product will be integrated into Galaxy in a new way. So it's not like you don't have to do anything if you've got an existing app that's using Kadira. And so let's talk first about Galaxy users. So if you're using Galaxy, you'll be able to access the same features, but inside Galaxy. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So basically, it's going to be a feature inside Galaxy. So you'll be able to deploy your app with the same command, just one command you've been deploying to Galaxy before, and then I think pretty much your app will just be automatically instrumented, and you'll be able to, inside your Galaxy dashboard. I think it won't be fully integrated into the UI at first because we haven't had time to rebuild like as much stuff. But you'll basically be able to really easily access the Kadira information from Galaxy. And I think it's not going to be called Kadira anymore. Like I said, we don't really have the trademark for that, but it'll be called, I think, Meteor APM. Cool.
Okay. And what if you're not using Galaxy?
Yeah. So if you're not using Galaxy, we definitely considered the option, of course, of continuing to run Kadira as a totally standalone product. But for an organization of our size, it makes a lot more sense to have one product than multiple. So the strategy we're taking for people who can't use Galaxy for one reason or another, don't want to, is we're going to open source the entire Kadira code base, right? All the stuff about agents, all the infrastructure, everything that we got from Aeronota when we bought it. And we're already starting to reach out to some people who might be interested in helping to maintain that. So we won't be maintaining it ourselves or accepting pull requests or something like that, but we know there are people in the community who are interested in doing that. And one of the things that's kind of cool is, as far as I know, this is going to be one of the few fully open source monitoring solutions out there. So there aren't too many platforms where you can get a pretty fully featured monitoring thing just straight off GitHub. Mm-hmm. And actually, one thing we want to encourage, maybe not too loudly, but encourage nonetheless, is if somebody wants to take that and figure out how to run it themselves as a standalone service, that's something you can totally do because it's going to be licensed with the MIT license, which means you can fork it, you can run it privately, and you can even build your own commercial service with it if you want to. So we're not doing anything at all to prevent people from running their own Kadira service if they wish to do that.
I would bet that most people who are using it right now would be happy to continue paying for it, more than happy to continue paying for it because it's a great service. So, and I think for Galaxy users, it's good that it's going to be integrated. I think that's what you would want using Galaxy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an additional benefit for people. I mean, I think the way we really see Galaxy growing is by becoming more integrated into Meteor, so that Meteor feels like this solution that you get from start to finish, everything you need. And it's going to be another way that Galaxy stands out compared to other more generic hosting services, is that it will offer features like this.
Cool. So for anyone that wants to host it themselves, that remains to be seen how hard that is or how many moving parts it has, but at least you can do it. So that's cool.
Yeah, I will say that if it was easy, everyone would do it. So I think the fact that, it's not the most trivial thing to run. I will admit that.
I recall some of the conversations back when it was a new service. Aeronota had talked a little bit about the things that they had to do to scale it, etc. So if I recall, it's using Go. It's not pure JavaScript. There's other languages and things involved, but
yeah, I haven't taken a look at the code too much yet, but I'm sure there'll be some interesting articles and content about that when it is open sourced, which may actually be before this episode comes out. I'm not sure. So I don't actually exactly know what timeline we're in right now. So maybe next episode we can talk more about it.
Okay. All right. Well, we will then. Looking forward to that. Well, that's cool. I think Galaxy is continuing to get better. That's good to see. You guys are now supporting the Asia Pacific region. That's another thing that happened very recently. So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're really investing a lot, both in Galaxy and Meteor, because people have really, really positive feedback about both of those projects. People who are using Galaxy are generally pretty pleased with what they're getting, both in terms of the product and support. And people using Meteor, we haven't yet done a lot of pushing to get new people using Meteor, but people who are already building apps with it and have existing apps, we have some pretty positive feedback about the direction of the platform. So, one thing I should plug here is we are, this is not even on our website for some reason, but I'm definitely looking around to see if we can find somebody who could be a Meteor evangelist. So if you're excited about Meteor or JavaScript, you want to go out into the community and really present it in a new light, get people excited, then I definitely would want to talk to you about that. So definitely going to see a lot of cool Meteor stuff and Galaxy stuff.
Cool. I think that's good news for everybody, actually. That's awesome. Okay. Yep. And one more comment on the Kadira thing. So if for anyone that's been using Kadira for error tracking as well, actually, this is a question for you, Sashko. Is it going to the part what you're integrating into Galaxy, is that going to include the error tracking as well?
I don't have all the details, to be honest. Okay. I think there are some parts. I don't want to promise too many things because I am not fully in on all the details. I think it'll include pretty much all the features that people are using because, of course, we would want to give people the best product we can. I think there are some small details that are a bit harder to operate or maybe might not even work that well in the first place. But I will have a lot more details on that soon. Okay. I'm pretty confident that we're talking to all the users and making sure that the thing we're providing is going to have all the features they care about. Okay.
Well, for anybody that's using it for error tracking, there are a lot of options there. At OKGrow, we use Sentry. There's also Rollbar. There's Raygun. There's a lot of options. So cool. Yep. And if you're not doing that, you should.
Okay. Sounds great.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the update on that. So the meteor-client-bundler was another hot topic from the last month. This is something that I'm really excited about. So you can actually make any JavaScript client-side app, any JavaScript app, be able to be a Meteor client. So like right now, Meteor feels pretty monolithic because the only way to get the client side of it is with the server side together. And it's right. I mean, maybe it's not the only way. There have been some other projects in the past that have done this, but this is, I guess, it's an official feature of Meteor, and it was pretty hard to find out how to do that before in the past. So now you can for example, create a React app with create React app, or you can use an Angular client or a React Native client, and then you can generate the client side of your Meteor app and have that available into the client. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that works technically, or what the implications are for Meteor developers?
So I think the place where I'm most excited about this project is specifically for mobile, because I think what we found is that we put in a fair amount of effort to make Cordova nicer to use. Include some features about hot code push, some stuff about login. We've actually invested quite a lot of code into that over the years. But it seems like Cordova itself, or even the approach of running code inside a web view for your mobile app, isn't really what most people are seeing as the future of mobile development. And this isn't like anything Meteor specific. It's just like most platforms that are trying to do mobile in that way seem to be encountering some problems or even just theoretical limitations. So I think like React Native, for example, is a really great way to build mobile apps if you still want to be writing JavaScript code and don't want to learn Swift.
Yep.
So I think that would be my favorite use case, is using something like React Native or maybe Ionic, even though it also does the web view thing. I think it hasn't always been as easy as we would have liked to build a more native feeling mobile app with Meteor. So I think this can be a really great way to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, at OKGrow, we were building a lot of Cordova apps, but now I think React Native is a clear winner. And a lot of the things that I really personally liked about doing the Cordova thing with Meteor, the main thing was hot code push. Now we're doing that with Expo, for example. So So if you're a fan of the sort of like, I don't want to say, well, I guess opinion. I mean, anyway, the thing that a lot of people liked about Meteor and Cordova was just giving you a turnkey solution all at once. You should probably look at Expo as well, Expo and React Native. So it gives you a lot of things that are that are a lot of work to do otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, Expo is really great. Like I think, have pretty much nailed all of the stuff that we built for the Meteor Cordova integration, like with the hot code push, version management, and even better. So I really, really am a big fan of their work. And with Apollo, we've been trying to partner with them as much as possible because not only, I mean, they're using Apollo to power parts of Expo, but we're also using their thing to power some of our React examples. So looking forward to doing more of that in the future. So yeah, huge fan of their work.
Cool. So with the meteor-client-bundler, I think that's cool because if you go away from Cordova and you want to use some like let's say React Native as your mobile app, at first you have to do a little bit of work to figure out. At first, it's not even clear what parts of Meteor you're going to be missing. So like, publications and methods are obvious, user login, all that kind of stuff. So there's a React Native Meteor package that gives you publications and DDP and that kind of stuff. But I take it that this gives you, if I understand it correctly, this gives you that and more, because this gives you the client side of any Atmosphere packages or any other Meteor specific. Well, I guess just Atmosphere packages. Is that right?
Yeah, so the way I understand is how it works is it basically under the hood just creates a Meteor app and then bundles it and then injects that code into wherever you need it to be. So essentially anything that you could import or do inside a Meteor app, you can now do just by creating this JavaScript bundle. It's the same. It's like a similar thing like, when people used to use Gulp or something like that to combine like several different build steps. And what essentially this is doing is creating a first build step that uses Meteor to compile Meteor specific stuff and then takes that file and puts it into whatever other build process you have. And the best part about that for me is that it doesn't really create like additional maintenance burden for that specific tool because it's just using the same stuff that Meteor is already doing.
Cool. I have a couple questions about it technically. So I assume that you need to rerun this Meteor client command every time anything changes with your Meteor packages. Like that doesn't happen automatically, right?
Yeah, that is currently how it works. Right. Yeah.
Okay. And then the output is placed under node modules. So I guess you need to add a step to your build on your client side just to make sure that happens every time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you could definitely. I think the main reason it puts it in node modules is so that you can easily import it, because things that are inside node modules you can import without providing the path. Right. And also I think it makes it easier to do, there's like a special loader that they have which lets you type imports that look like you're importing a Meteor package, which are actually transformed under the hood into like something else that loads from this client bundle. So there are definitely some benefits to putting it under node modules. I think what you're referring to is like one disadvantage is people usually ignore node modules in their source control. So yeah, it's like you're gonna have to rerun this whenever you pull new code or something like that. Right. I think it's still a pretty early days, and like there's a lot of room for people to create a better experience around this. Like perhaps you could do it as, I mean, the simplest thing would be to just have a watch script that like reruns this whenever you change your packages or something. But because it's just packages and it's not like you're actually changing your app code or something like that, I feel like you wouldn't have to run it that many times.
Okay. So I have a question about the future of this. The way I would really like to see Meteor clients stuff work is that they just pull it from NPM. That would obviously require Tracker, DDP, Minimongo, whatever you're using on your client side to be available from NPM. So I guess I should just ask if there's any update on that.
Yeah, this has definitely been going a lot slower than I think people would have hoped, just because there are so many other priorities to look at as well. So currently there isn't a way to install Meteor stuff directly from npm, but it remains to be something that is near the top of the priority list. So like one very small milestone, which is like not that meaningful, is that we've found an organization on npm that we want to publish stuff under, which is going to be the Meteor.js organization, or scope, I guess they call it. And we've already published one thing on there, which is a ESLint config. So awesome. Baby steps, but at least now we have a place to put those things. And so I think like the way I would see this playing out, just in a purely speculative fashion, is there's probably going to be some version of Meteor coming up. I don't know what version it's going to be or exactly when, which is going to be a much more like JavaScript standard tool. And there's still a lot of questions like, how easy does it need to be, or like how much backwards compatibility stuff needs to go in there, right? So for now, one of the requirements has been everything we do, it should be really easy to migrate from previous versions of Meteor to the next one, which has been working quite well because I think based on our stats, like maybe 75 to 80% of people are on Meteor 1.4, which is the newest version.
Honestly, I got to give you guys credit for that. I think you've bent over backwards to keep backward compatibility. So. Yeah.
So some of this stuff, like changing npm packages, the main holdup is not that like we don't know how to move the code. It's that we don't know how to do it in a way that will be an easy transition path for people. So if there was some way to like relax that restriction, or inspect some of the cases, or maybe you can use like meteor-client-bundler for the like legacy part of your app. If we could figure out some solution like that, then these things would become a lot easier.
Just my personal opinion would be that maybe people who are really most excited about that are not going to mind if they don't get Atmosphere packages, maybe, for example, if that's one of the things. So
but I think like something like the meteor-client-bundler could be like an escape hatch, which is like you can take part of your app and until the end of eternity you can bundle that with like Meteor 1.4 or 1.5 or whatever. I think like there's going to be some cutting off point at which we're going to be like, okay, we have to figure out how to make Meteor like a fully modern tool that like lives with the rest of the modern ecosystem. But I don't exactly know like when that will be.
Okay.
So yeah.
Maybe that's a good segue to just ask about Meteor 1.5. That sounds like 2.0 kind of talk, what we were just talking about there. But
we've been joking internally about like skipping the 2.0 version number, like Angular kind of did with some of them.
You should just
like,
jump right to 14.
I was just joking, like if we just called Meteor 1.5 Meteor 5.0, like, and then they're like, "Where's 2.0?" I'm like, I don't know, like next one's 6, that's it.
Yes. Well,
because there's just so much like pressure about like these numbers. I think that's one thing that I think I will learn for future projects is like be more aggressive with the version numbers. Because like being on like 1.x for like what 2 years, 3 years now is like people really build up a lot of expectations. But yeah, so Meteor 1.5 is going along well. We're trying to figure out where to put a line in the sand for what should go in 1.5 versus a future version. And one of the things that we really, really, really want to put in there, which is something that we're working on right now, is the dynamic module loading works pretty well right now. And actually, I think some really brave people are using it in production. But the thing we don't yet have is a tool that will help you understand what benefits you're getting from that. And I think launching without that would be a mistake because people are going to install Meteor 1.5, they'll like use some dynamic imports, and then it's like, did it work? I don't even know.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty critical that we have some kind of tool that tells you how much bundle size you're saving or how much you could save, so that people can actually feel like they're getting the value out of it.
Cool.
And that's like most of what we have left that seems like super critical. So it's definitely like on the horizon, I would say.
Cool. Well, for anyone that's playing with it, if you're using React, try React Loadable. which apparently works quite nicely right out of the box, according to the blog post you guys published a few weeks back. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's been really great is one of the things that is, people have been asking for code splitting and stuff in the days of early days of Webpack, when Webpack had some very Webpack specific APIs for managing that stuff. And it's super awesome that there's now a JavaScript standard. So now when somebody writes a package like React Loadable, instead of only working with Webpack or any other specific tool, it can now work with all the tools. So that's awesome.
Cool. Okay. Well, next topic that has been a big one on the forums for the last couple of weeks was Vulcan. So Vulcan is a framework that has come out of the Telescope project, and it's basically Meteor Apollo integration with some nice defaults and built-in functionality, and it's kind of like Rails for Meteor. So for people that have been wishing to go back to a more kind of prescriptive way of doing things, you might like this. It's like if you for your basic app, like the beginnings of a typical sort of CRUD app, it looks amazing. It'll get you started super fast, and it looks like you can eject really nicely. You can just sort of stop using it. It's a Meteor app with Apollo at the underneath, and it generates some stuff for you. And as soon as your needs no longer work with it, then it looks like it can pretty easily kind of move on from it. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Sashko?
Yeah, I think my main thought is I'm really, really excited this is happening because one of our main goals with Apollo was to make something that gave people a good set of building blocks to work with GraphQL in a nice way. It's a pretty it's not quite minimalist because there's some extra stuff in there that maybe some stuff we would want to remove in the future. But it's a pretty Apollo is not a framework you would want to build your entire app on out of the box without building some of your own helpers, for example. So it's great that Vulcan is coming out with this thing that's going to give you some of those helpers on top of it to do stuff like forms, etc. So I guess my main point is I wish more people would think about different ways to build frameworks like this on top of Apollo. And I think Vulcan has a really great approach. It has some of the things that we've been thinking about. Specifically, there's this article 5 ways Vulcan makes Apollo better. Better is certainly an opinion-based statement, but some of the things that are cool is it reduces some boilerplate, helps you automatically share fragments between different stuff. It helps you automatically generate forms, do pagination more easily. So, I really hope to see that take off as a lighter weight or more straightforward way for people to start using GraphQL and Meteor together. And then we can focus on making the underlying Apollo stuff more and more solid without having to worry too much about all of these different features that people might want.
Yep. Yeah, it looks great for getting started quickly, and I'm excited. Yeah, and like you, I'd love to see more of those kind of things.
Yeah, it's really funny. We've been seeing some really big spikes in downloads for Apollo Client. The thing that's always surprising to me is when I see a lot of downloads of Apollo Client without React Apollo, which is the primary way people usually use it. So I looked into dependence on NPM. So on NPM, you can see which packages are depending on your package. And I found a bunch of 25% done full stack frameworks on there. So my dream is that a couple months in the future, there will be 5 Apollo-based frameworks that are all doing different stuff. And there are definitely some people out there that are secretly working on those, except not that secretly because they published them to NPM. So that's cool. But I'm super excited about Vulcan just because the stuff that Sasha has done before has been really cool.
Yep, totally. Okay, awesome. There was one more topic that came up on the thread where we asked for suggestions, and that was progressive web apps. I don't know if there's much to say about that, but...
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is that a lot of the aspects of progressive web apps are already represented in Meteor. Like it has ways of dealing with data that make it easier to handle interruptions in your connection, stuff like that. It makes sure that like all of the required application code is preloaded on the client. So people have built like desktop app wrappers for Meteor. You know, the Cordova thing for Meteor is in some ways like just a super fancy progressive web app because it just loads your Meteor client code into your phone and keeps it there forever. So the one thing that people have talked about that's kind of missing is a way to load your app without being online in the first place. So, could you have no internet and type in a URL and see the app appear in your browser? And the way that Google is presenting to make that happen is service workers, which can also work, offline when you don't even have a connection. The thing that's really cool about service workers is I don't think it's very complicated if you're just trying to use a service worker for serving an app offline. So there's been actually a package already, or not a package, but just like kind of a code snippet by this person on GitHub, Nitro Bay. It's called Meteor Service Worker. And so basically it's just a single JavaScript file you can paste into your app that will just return the right assets at the right time. So there's definitely been some requests of building service worker stuff into the Meteor build tool. But I think until that happens, if it happens, I think this is a really great way to do it because I actually think it's great that it's not a Meteor-specific approach. So you can just use service workers directly the same way that anyone else might use them.
Cool. So there's nothing that actually prevents you from using service workers with Meteor. For some reason, I thought there was some issue there.
Yeah, not that I know of.
Okay.
There's things that prevent you from building a service worker that is compiled with the Meteor build tool.
Okay.
That's definitely a fact. But my impression of service workers so far is that it's not something you have to change very frequently. It's not like part of your application code is inside the service worker or something. So it's something you can just kind of write once and forget. And so it's not super critical for it to be built in if that's something that you need in your app.
Okay. All right. Cool. So that's all I had. Was there anything else that you wanted to say, Sashko?
No, nothing in particular. Two things. One is, the main thing is, we're looking for content for our upcoming Meteor meetup in San Francisco. So you can watch the videos from the previous one on YouTube. But if you're in the Bay Area or want to fly in and want to give a talk about something about Meteor, just let me know and we'll get that set up. And and I'm really excited about the stuff coming up. So I spent a good amount of time working on the Apollo Client 1.0 release in the last few weeks, and I hope to spend a little bit more time thinking about moving Meteor forward as well.
I should have said congrats on the Apollo 1.0.
Thanks. That went pretty well, I would say. Really exciting about the reception from the community. Yeah. One of my favorite things is that apparently Major League Soccer is using it. Awesome. I don't know why that is exciting, but just like whenever there's sports stuff, I'm like, this is some really mainstream now,
Awesome.
So
cool. And glad to see Meteor moving forward again still.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna keep getting faster. Like I said, we're hiring some new people, building real new stuff into Galaxy. And again, if you wanna if you know anybody who'd like to be an evangelist, I'm interested in that.
Okay. All right, well, that wraps it up for this week. That's it for number 19. Thank you, Sashko.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for hosting, as always.
See you next month.